is going to be shown videos, the video shown too?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Paz. With me today, very special guest, one half of the Heartthrobs, of course, a former WWE superstar. He is, of course, Romeo Roselli. Romeo, welcome to the two-man power trip. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Doing good. What's going on in your world? What have you been up to?
Just honestly, just enjoying being a father, and just my daughter's my world, and really just focusing on that right now. Yeah.
Are you still doing training and things like that? You are still into like the fitness world?
Yeah, so I'm heavy into the health and fitness industry. I actually became a professor at a university. So I've been teaching classes there, and that's kind of one way I've been able to kind of mentor and give back in that respect. My day-to-day operations are still working with clients one on one, and then I travel around the country and I teach fitness and health wellness seminars, and I'm a speaker at events and things like that. So I have my hands in a lot of things in the fitness industry standpoint that keeps me pretty busy.
How about the wrestling world? Are you doing anything wrestling related?
Nothing too much. Every once in a while, I'll roll around for training, just to kind of keep my ring shape, so to speak. I think it's good cardio too, and nothing too much. If I get asked to do something, I most likely will say yes. I just don't get asked to do much nowadays, and that's because I don't really put myself out there in the wrestling industry anymore. So
Any reason behind that, or just it is what it is?
what's that?
Any like reason behind that? You don't really get yourself out there as much for wrestling, or is it just kind of is what it is? You're not really too into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that's kind of gradually evolved in my life, where it doesn't really fill a need in my life anymore. But like I said, that's not to say if here and there someone wants me to do a show, I'm happy to do it, and I have fun doing it, and I still love being backstage and performing in front of the crowd. Uh, it's just not something that it used to be. Oh, what am I doing Friday night and Saturday night? I'm going to go here and do this show and this show. Now it's, what am I doing Friday night and Saturday night? Well, I'm taking my daughter to the circus, and then we're going to go to Disney on Ice, and we're going to do this, and that's more of a priority for me these days.
A little bit different than wrestling each weekend
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, a little bit different. And let's face it, I'm a little older now, so there's only so many so many more matches I guess I have in me, so to speak. So I'd rather just use them wisely.
So many bumps on the bump card, I guess you would say.
Right. Yeah. And you know, I'm not one that's done millions of matches and done crazy stuff, but one of the reasons why I really jumped down the health and fitness rabbit hole was because I saw what wrestling can do to a human body with others, and also with my own body. And when I started to realize that I can almost heal my body through specific movements, through specific exercises, through specific routines and regimens, that's when I really started to get interested. And I work with a lot of older clientele as well. So I have many clients that I work with in their 70s and 80s and 90s that are just looking to improve and enhance their quality of life. And I see those individuals and I help them the best I can. And, I try to think about what I can do for my body and my loved ones, that are going to get us to that 70, 80, 90 plus mark in a very healthy way, where you're still self-sufficient, you're still independent, you still got all your marbles, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm very conscious of, how I'm taking care of my body, and what I'm doing. And, I kind of joke around with my clients who didn't really know me as a wrestler, just know me as a trainer. And it's, when you describe wrestling, it may be one of the most unhealthy things you could possibly do to a human body, right? Like, you're getting thrown around, you're falling. It's not a stunt where there's a net and everything. You're traveling, so you're not getting a lot of sleep, and then the importance of sleep alone, right? And then you're not eating well because you're eating on the road and you're doing the best you can. So between nutrition being off, between sleep being off, between getting thrown around in a ring and taking bumps that a human body really wasn't designed to take, you put all that together, and it's like, that's not really the healthiest of careers. So I think a lot about that stuff, especially as I'm around a lot of older clientele, and as I see my family has gotten older, and I just, it just makes me much more conscious of, how I'm treating my body.
How do you get, like, kind of stay in shape after wrestling? Because, like you said, I mean, that's like impossible to kind of not be injured most of the time when you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah, so I guess the general term is I've developed a movement based approach. So it's one of the big buzzwords in fitness is kind of a functional approach, where I don't really use a lot of machines. Everything's kind of calisthenic, body weight, a lot of multi-directional type of things, and a lot of flexibility, mobility type of training. Uh, that's one common theme that I've seen in clients now, and I've been in the fitness industry over 15 years now. And one of the constant themes that I see is, everyone's complaining about how tight they are, and especially as they get older, and how this is tight, or everyone's just, oh, my hips are tight, my back hurts, my shoulder, and the common theme is that none of these individuals had really good flexibility or mobility. And as I've gotten older, and as I've gotten injured, and I've had quite a few surgeries on my body through because of wrestling. And as I've had to experience this stuff, I've prioritized, flexibility and mobility type of training, in my daily regimen, and little stuff that I've kind of learned along the way, that not too many people think about, like foot care, and how important just taking care of your feet are, and how, different type of textures, when stepping on, when using your feet, actually help keep the feet strong. So I have my little, what I call a rock garden, and it's different types of rocks, and I kind of walk, and I just kind of do movements with my feet in these different type of rocks. And this is not something that I ever thought of, years ago or before I got in the fitness industry. And you just kind of, once again, learn down this rabbit hole about, the importance of all the little stuff, because if you have strong feet, then it'll help keep your knees strong, and help keep your hips strong, because that's what's holding up the knees and your hips. So like little things like that, paying attention. There's the quote that I use is, that I stole from someone else, and I don't know where it originated from. If you don't listen to the whispers of your bodies, you will eventually be forced to hear it scream. All right. So if you're like, oh yeah, something a little achy there, but it's probably going to go away. It'll be all right. And then, eventually it leads into something bigger. So I try to be on the preventative side of things. I do a lot of, I love doing like a lot of foam rolling, a lot of self-care. And I still, on the other side of things, I still get after it. I still do my weight training. I still do some high intensity aerobic stuff. I still do some cardiovascularly demanding stuff. And it's just that variety and variability of, my main themes of doing something for flexibility, doing something for kind of power, quick, intensity, and then doing something meat and potatoes for strength. And I kind of make sure I incorporate those three themes, throughout the course of a week, to keep me going. And if nothing else, like I always bring back to my daughter, so I can keep up with my daughter and play with my daughter. And I have a pretty nice gym in my house, and she likes to come in there, and she likes to, play in there with me. And I want to go to her baseball practices and play with her and sprint around the bases, and feel okay doing that.
That's great though, like, to think of that stuff, even like the foot stuff, you wouldn't think of that, or I wouldn't have thought of that anyway. It's like you gotta keep the feet strong. Certain things, flexibility even could help. Sleep is gonna help. I mean, bunch of stuff you're saying is definitely, could resonate with everybody almost.
Yeah, and not just wrestling. The three biggest kind of rocks in the health and wellness field are, obviously exercise. But you can put is I like to prefer movement, because movement could be if someone does climbing on mountains and like to go skiing, and that's great, quote, exercise. And then the next pillar is nutrition, right? So what you're putting in your body, what you're feeding your body. The next pillar is stress management, right? So are you able to manage stress on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, yearly basis? Because that affects our cortisol levels. That affects how we're holding on to our fat if you're trying to lose weight, and things of that sort. So I mentioned exercise, I mentioned nutrition, I mentioned stress management, and the last one that we talked about was sleep. Are you getting the adequate sleep? Not just for your body, but there's plenty of research, and there's plenty of studies that demonstrate how if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not letting your brain go through a kind of a recycling period every night where it kind of flushes out some garbage and kind of resets itself. And that's how I've actually written a lot of papers for the university on Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and things like that, because that's something that's gotten me very interested over the years, especially when I'm seeing other wrestlers, not age very well, and then
Yeah.
when I'm seeing the general population not age very well either. So I'm trying to, at this point in my life, I'm just looking. I'm saying, I, so what needs to be done to prevent things like dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. And sleep is a huge part of it, and it's something that a lot of people just don't consider, or some people wear it as a badge of honor. Or I only need 4 hours of sleep, or I only need 5 hours of sleep, or this or that. Honestly, I don't care who it is. Like, it's not a badge of honor. It's not great that you only need, or you think you only need 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I could give you any research study or sleep expert in the world, and they will say that's one of the worst things that you could possibly do to your brain and to your body, emotionally, physically, mentally, everything like that.
Hey, your old boss, Vince McMahon, always says about himself, I don't sleep. Sleep for somebody else, pal. All that stuff that he's anti-sleep, basically.
Right. I didn't know that, but those are also probably good sound bites too. And listen, when you're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, there's a good chance that you're probably not sleeping that much. And with his ego too, I could see him saying that. But it's still being said, like, it's not good to not sleep. Right?
Yeah.
That's just kind of the bottom line.
How many hours of sleep should you be getting a night, just in general?
They say kind of the minimum seven, depending on age, and the older you get, some people say the harder it is for them to sleep, or the harder it is to stay asleep. But I always shoot for a minimum of seven myself, and if it's eight, great. But somewhere in that wheelhouse. I feel like once you start dipping below six, then it's a slippery slope, so to speak. And I think there was one research study that said, if you're under 5 hours, even for a day, a night or two, then it's like this correlated to like being drunk, having a certain inebriated, number, a very high number. It was the same correlation of what that does to your body. So it was, sleep is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's very important, more important than I guess you would think, or you would even imagine how important it is.
It's one of the things that, honestly, if you're looking to lose weight, or if you're looking to gain muscle, if you're looking to, whatever health markers or whatever health goals that there are, if you're looking to increase your aerobic capacity, or whatever, or run a race or cut time on a race or whatever, the common theme in any single health mark, and I've talked about this with my clients, is sleep. Like every sleep will be in every single one of these goals, whether, like I said, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to gain weight, whether you want to gain muscle, whether you want to increase your mile time, or that, like, sleep is always in there.
Wow, it's funny. A buddy was busting my balls saying, "Oh, you're not getting enough sleep. You're not getting enough sleep." He was right, I guess. Maybe I need to admit to him that he was correct.
Maybe he was on to something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, he's working out and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, I get this amount of sleep." I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of sleep." I think he was saying 8 hours or something he was getting a night. I was like,
Oh,
"That
God
seems
bless.
like a lot," but I guess it's not. I guess it's probably just right. 7, 8 hours is probably just right.
Sure, yeah. If you can get 8, wow, that's great.
Who would have known? And maybe Vince McMahon is an insomniac or something, because he was saying that he doesn't sleep. Maybe he can't sleep. Maybe he's too wired up, or
That,
was
that,
too wired up
that,
at
yeah,
work.
yeah. I mean, that could certainly, be the case. But like I said, there, when you're looking at, that type of level of ownership and a corporation, then, there, you have to sacrifice some things, and unfortunately, you sacrifice some sleep, which is not exactly the healthiest thing to do for your body.
He's retired now, so hopefully
Yes,
he's getting
maybe
more sleep.
he'll get more sleep.
Yeah, hopefully. So just talking about WWF, how do you actually, or WWE really, how do you get in there? No, I guess it's really through OVW, but how do you get noticed as a wrestler to even get in there? Like, what is your story of getting actually into OVW, into developmental, which will eventually get you into WWE?
Right. So I have we all have a unique story. I have I would say a very unique story, because I went to college in Fairfield, Connecticut, Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is very close to the headquarters in
Oh, yeah, very
Stamford,
close. Yeah.
Connecticut. So when I was getting close to graduation, I actually put in a resume into the WWE corporate headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, in their live events department, and lo and behold, I actually got called in, and I guess I did well in the interview, and they actually hired me as an intern. So I was actually working in the corporate office, and
Wow.
also working as a independent wrestler. And I never told anybody in the office that I was an independent wrestler, because then they would just think that I was, trying to get in, and trying to, like, just take T-shirts, or, like, just be like a fanboy. So I kept it quiet. Eventually, ended up coming out, and it was actually very well received. And they were all like, "That's great. We hope you make it." And then there, at that time, I said, "Well, if I really want to work for WWE as a wrestler and not as an office employee, then I would need to move to OVW, and I would eventually need to go through OVW." Um, Before I get to that, I'll backtrack and say working at the WWE corporate headquarters was really cool, especially as a fan, pretty much just coming out of college, right? And
Yeah.
as a big wrestling fan my whole life. I mean, I'm working out in that gym, and there's Linda, Stephanie, Vince, and I'm like working out next to all of them, at, like, at the end of the workday around, 5, 6 o'clock, whatever it is. And not every day, but it was still, every once in a while, just be like, "Oh yeah, Linda McMahon's working out next to me." And next day, "Oh yeah, there's Triple H and there's Hunter and Stephanie working out next to me." And then the next day, Vince comes in, and, he does his thing too. Um, so it was just a really cool experience, and just seeing it from a corporate side, seeing all the work that goes in, especially working in the live events department, just seeing all the work that goes into the live events. See, as wrestling fans, as even as wrestlers, all we see is we walk into a full arena, the lights, the theatrics, the great show. And, I got to see what it takes to book the building, to sell tickets to the building, to interview talent, to promote the show for the building. And I was involved in all of that stuff. I ended up making calls to arenas saying, "Hey, Madison Square Garden." I wasn't doing MSG. I'll just use MSG as an example. "Hey,
Right.
MSG, we want to bring WWE to your to your venue on June 21st. Are you available? Okay, no, but we're available on the 22nd. Okay, let me get back. So I was involved in all of that. So I literally saw a show from start to finish, which was pretty cool because then I got to see, all right, the show's booked on June 21st at MSG. All right, now we got to get the advertisements out. Okay, who are we going to use for advertising? We'll use Brock, Randy, blah blah blah. Okay, now we got to put a 30-second spot together and send that out to the New York market. And now we got to get the flyer. Oh, and then let's get Batista to do a phone interview on New York radio, and then the ticket. Okay, big on sale. Tickets go on sale on June 1st, so we got to get it out. I saw everything, and I have so much respect for everyone who worked in the live events department. But I was also working with all other departments too, and I saw how everybody was kind of working together. And it was just really a really fun experience and a great experience to see, how Vince would say that corporate machine churns in Stanford. But then kind of fast forward, I said, well, this is all cool, but I still want to be a wrestler. And to do that, I eventually need to go through OVW. So then I didn't have a contract. I was just independent wrestler. So I moved myself down to Louisville, Kentucky. I got a job waiting tables, made just enough money on a weekly basis just to pay for rent and just to pay for a little food. I joined the beginner class just as a regular student, and then eventually was asked to be in kind of the intermediate class. And I just went to literally every single class. I went to every single show, whether I was on the show, whether I wrestled or didn't wrestle. I attended every single practice. I did everything I could. Eventually, I started to get, noticed in regards to just my look too, and how well I kept myself in shape. Eventually I was asked to participate in the contract class, even though I wasn't under contract, which was, a very big deal, that you're working with the contract guys, because they're getting paid, and you don't want to hurt them, and you don't want to mess them up, and they're trusting you, you're trusting them, et cetera, et cetera. And then eventually, Jim Cornette, I have so many great things to say about him. He really saw something in me. And then when Tom Matera, who was Antonio, when he ended up getting signed, he got signed, and then he ended up getting moved to OVW. I wasn't signed. And then, Jim Cornette kind of put us together, and he said, he goes, you guys, you're going to put big red hearts on your tights, and you're going to wear feather boas, and we're going to call you the Heartbreakers, and it's going to be great. And I'm going to put you with a black pimp called Mo Green, and it's going to be Mo Green and the Heartbreakers. It's going to be awesome. And we were just like, you're Jim Cornette. I'm going to do whatever you say. But he was still, unbelievable in regards to the interactions I've had with him, the work he did. And I can honestly say that probably OVW was some of the greatest moments and some of the greatest experiences that I've ever had. And then eventually we ended up getting a dark match on I think it was in Cincinnati, Ohio, because when WWE was in Cincinnati and OVW was still in Louisville, and as their developmental, we would all go up to Cincinnati, and then sometimes we would get in the ring, and sometimes a couple guys would get dark matches. So at the time, Tommy Dreamer was the head of developmental at that time, and I have nothing but amazing things to say about Tommy Dreamer too, and so does so many. And I owe so much of my career to Tommy Dreamer, and so many others do as well. And then Tommy Dreamer got us a dark match, because he was basically saying, you got to see this. You got to see this crazy, stupid act that these two knuckleheads are doing. And we ended up, getting a dark match, and we got reactions immediately, and we got we got good feedback. And then it wasn't long thereafter where then I was offered a contract, and it wasn't long after that where we were called up to the to the main roster. So that's my short, long story, but a lot of other things happened along the way. But maybe that's another podcast for another day.
Right, right. I don't know if a lot of guys, maybe no guys, has ever been an intern and then all of a sudden went to developmental and got signed. I can't think of another guy.
Right. So that's why I consider my story, pretty unique. That a lot of wrestlers ended up doing the corporate side of things and the wrestling side of things, but not many did it kind of the way I the way I did it, which was, like
Yeah.
I said, it was fun to do.
So how is Cornette? I know everybody has their own opinion on him. I know you said you love working with him, but how is he? Because I always hear from the guys that he's one of those guys that, if he says he's going to watch everybody's match and give them a critique, he watches everybody's match and he gives them a critique. He's not a bullshitter. He's laser focused type of guy. Like what would you like? How would you describe Cornette?
Yeah, well, he's certainly not a bullshitter. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
even as much as there was a time where he was really fond of my work. There was also a time where I don't know what he said to me, but because I still remember it, and he said something about how bad I was or how bad a match I had. And he was just being honest.
yeah.
And everyone has bad matches, but you can't take it to heart. But he was very, very straightforward. The man loves the wrestling business, and he just hates when he sees it kind of not go the way, I guess, that he would like it to be preserved,
Hmm.
so to speak. And like the old expression is, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Um, you know, I honestly think he has a lot of good points, and I think it just comes from a point of passion. And he just, I, not speaking for him, but I want to say that he wishes every match was awesome. He wishes he would probably, enjoy watching every wrestler. But when he sees something that he doesn't like, that doesn't make sense to him and doesn't make sense to the legacy of the wrestling business that he grew up in, he's going to be outspoken, and he could say something. And given what he's done in his life, I'm going to say he could say whatever the heck he wants to say, because he's done more than most. And when people say, or in the wrestling business, and it's like draw money, like he understood who drew money, how they drew money, and what drew money. And that is really the end all be all of of a profession like this, where it's the end. Like, literally, there's fans, and it's different now because sometimes, like WrestleMania, you're just going because it's WrestleMania.
Yes.
Um, but in the end, you're paying money to see something that really attracted you, that said, I got to see this, or I need to see this person because he is superhuman, or he's this, or he's that. And like I said, I think this all just comes from his past experiences and his passion. And I don't have a bad thing to say about him. I know probably a lot of people maybe do, or some people do, but he was great to all of us in OVW. I feel like, just thinking about our roster, I think I can't think of anybody that really you know you know didn't like him too much, or everybody disagrees with everybody, right? You're not going to agree with everybody. When he said, I'm going to be wearing a feather boa and put red lips on my tights, I was like, well, it wouldn't be my first choice, right? But
Right.
like, sure, Jim, like, I'll go with it. And he literally kind of took us every step of the way. And he said, okay, this week on OVW TV, you're going to do a promo, and here's what the point. Here's the point we're trying to get across, because in 2 weeks, guys start your feud with MNN, MNN. And we're going to build off of that, and then eventually we're going to do this, and Mo Green and Molina are going to be going at it and rolling around on the floor, and that's when the crowd comes up, and that's when we'll do the finish, right? So he's got it all. He's got it all in his mind. So he was, once again, he was great to work with, and obviously, like I keep going on about him, I can't say enough good things about him.
Obviously, very, very successful. Even OVW, look at all the guys that came out of there and became top stars in WWE. I mean, big time top stars in WWE for decades.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that came, right before me, like Brock and Randy and Shelton Benjamin and guys like that. And then, the guys that were in my class, which was like Bobby Lashley and Dolph Ziggler and the Spirit Squad. I'm sure I'm missing, Ken Anderson, you know, you know, and the guys that came, guys that came after us as well. I mean, it's unbelievable, the talent. It's also unbelievable to see where developmental has gone now. like
Yeah.
like we, when we were in OVW, when I was in OVW, we thought that was like really nice, right? Like because we had the new Davis Arena, which moved out of like the old Davis Arena, which was like a really beat up kind of warehouse. Then we got the new Davis Arena with a nice backstage area, a nice ring, a nice setup, nice hard camera view, et cetera, et cetera. And compare that to what developmental has now. It's like good for them, good for anybody who's been able to utilize the performance center as their developmental, and the fact that they don't know any different about what it used to be like. And I'm not saying any that we were so high and mighty, but comparing to what they have now is like, wow, good for them, and kudos to WWE for taking their developmental to such heights.
Yeah, it is crazy to think like, oh my god, the football facility basically. It's almost like the WCW power plant like on
Right,
steroids with a football
right.
facility that's like
Yeah.
grade A stuff. I mean, it's amazing that place.
Yeah, and from what I hear, I mean, they have all the bells and whistles with the exercise equipment and the recovery equipment and this and that. So I mean, they have every opportunity to succeed and to live, sleep, breathe, eat wrestling, and just to focus once again, focusing on their bodies. And from what I hear from the guys that I still talk to that have gone through there or that are working there or you know that have been there, they literally have everything that they need to succeed. And they are also integrating this kind of approach with recovery and stress management. And I know they're being talked about the importance of things like sleep and re- doing smart things with their money and retirement, and doing things outside of just you know this is a training camp to learn how to bump. I know they're taking care of individuals in other ways, which is nice because as we've all seen, there's our past generations of wrestlers aren't exactly aging well and don't exactly have really nice stories. um, you know I haven't seen. I've heard about Dark Side of the Ring,
Yeah.
and I haven't really seen any of it. I just maybe see like a 2-minute clip on my feed or something like that. I don't even know like it's. But from what I've seen and what I've heard about it, Dark Side of the Ring kind of is exposing a lot of wrestlers that were what in their in the generation before us in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that eventually didn't end up very well.
Some crazy, crazy times. Definitely a different era of people for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
When you look at it and like you were saying the PC, how great it is. Do you almost think that's a little bit of a negative though? That the guys have it too easy nowadays and they need to do a little bit of the struggle, or is that doesn't matter? They should have the best facility.
Here's one thing I'll say, and maybe I'm a little biased. Right, when I was on the independent circuit, and it wasn't for very long, there was guys that grinded much longer than me and went through much more than I did. But I did 12-hour drives one way, so 24-hour drive, with a bunch of guys that some of them I barely knew, some of them I got to know very well, to wrestle in front of 20 people, to get paid $10 or $20, if that, or just get paid gas money for the car. And we did that for years and years. And I think going through that builds a lot of resiliency and builds a lot of commitment, and it just layers you with a certain body armor, not just physically but mentally. And the fact that maybe some wrestlers nowadays don't have to go through that, I actually do feel like it's a detriment, because as much as they can practice, and I know they're getting all these different styles that they're learning, and there's all these different great trainers that they have, and that's all wonderful, and that they should be getting that. And if they have the ability to do that, which they do, then they should be taking advantage of that. But that the intangibles of having to grind and having to take these long trips for no money in front of nobody, and just building that experience too of, hopefully there's a couple veterans in the locker room there that you can pick their brains, or you can say, hey, can you watch my match? And then they can give you feedback. And like, that was, if you drove 12 hours and got $10 and got 5 minutes of feedback, you felt like that was a success. And I can't say that not going through that is something that the guys would be missing, because I feel like going through that does, once again, it does kind of does something to you. And having spoken with other wrestlers and people that were in corporate positions and out of corporate positions and this or that, it's once once you can end up being an accomplished wrestler after grinding, like, you could do anything. And I know that's cliched, but if you're willing to go through everything that a pro wrestler has to go through to become successful, then you have built yourself to be committed to do any other thing that you want to do. Because it's like, look what I went through. I literally wrestled in barns in front of like 20 or 30 people with like hay on the floor, in Iowa and Kentucky and things like that. So the long answer to your question is yes. Like, I feel like there is something missing, because they come in, they get to foam roll to start, or they get a nice warm up, and sometimes they're just watching tape, which is all, once again, it's all good. I'm not saying that's bad, but maybe they have to drive 4 hours to Jacksonville, or wherever they have to go, or down to Miami. But there's something to be said for the grind of and I still see a lot of independent wrestlers, and God bless them, they're doing it and they're grinding away. And I hope they all make it in some way, shape, or form, or however they define making it, because they deserve it, and they're still going after it the older way, so to speak.
So when you guys do get called up from OVW to the main roster, I mean, it's pretty amazing, because it's like, oh my God, we're debuting, we're going to be on TV, we're going to be on Raw, we're going to be on MSG, we're going to be for the tag titles. Like, how does that all kind of happen to go down? Who tells you? And I guess they give you a little bit of a name change too.
Yeah, so it, like I said, it happened really, really fast, and Tommy Dreamer was the one who, and I was actually, it must have been like a holiday weekend or something, because I remember me and Nick Nemeth, aka Dolph Ziggler, we decided we were gonna go to, I don't know, we were gonna drive somewhere, go to the beach, and spend a weekend there. And literally, like, we drove several hours. We got to the beach. I turned on my phone, and Tommy Dreamer left me a message saying, basically, "Hey, you and Tom are going to debut on Raw on Monday at MSG for the tag team titles." It's like, wow, that's quite the voicemail. And it kind of happened, quickly, after that. And living in New York my whole life, being a New Yorker, going to MSG many times, the fact that I got to perform there and debut there, is something that I'll always take with me, and I'll always say I can do. And I believe I was I think I was 24 or 23 or 24, and to say that, I don't know many 23-year-old, kids that say they got to perform in front of a sold out Madison Square Garden. And that was actually a show where Hulk Hogan was on. And of course, growing up in the 80s, Hulk was my guy. So that was a very full circle moment where I was a contracted WWE wrestler. I was wrestling live on Monday Night Raw. I was in Madison Square Garden, and I was talking to Hulk Hogan backstage. Meanwhile, I would have waited online 6 hours as a 10-year-old kid just to shake his hand. And now, we're just, shoulder to shoulder backstage. So, it was quite the experience.
I was at that show, and that pop when he comes out, makes the surprise appearance, that was deafening. I remember my friend's uncle was sitting next to us. He goes, "I can't hear anything. I can't hear." It was like a roar went through the crowd. And it's funny. I went back and I watched it. It's even louder when you're like obviously when you're there, but it's like crazy loud when we were there. Everyone was shocked that he made that surprise appearance.
Well, I mean, Hulk and MSG, right? I mean,
Yep.
those are some those are some fond memories that those two entities have performed with each other. So the fact that he got to come back later on and be on that show was something special. And then he ended up kind of doing several months. I think that summer was the summer he feuded with Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
So he was around quite a bit during that time, and being able to be around him, and Shawn Michaels being back full time at that time was great to be around, because I grew up watching Shawn too. So it was just surreal or cliche, any cliche you want to throw in there.
Why the Heartthrobs and not the Heartbreakers? Is it because of Shawn Michaels?
Could have been. Yeah, I still don't know the answer to this day, but I'm guessing it probably something to do with the Heartbreakers was probably too close to the Heartbreak Kid, and maybe they just like the Heartthrobs, a little bit more. Maybe it was a little more unique. Heartbreakers, Heartbreak Kid. Maybe they just wanted a little something, a little more different than Heartbreak. But I honestly, and I would say it at this point, because what do I care? But I don't know why, other than as a 23-year-old kid and two kids that just got called up to the main roster. Looking back, we were probably too contained and too okay. Yes, sure, we'll do whatever you want to do. We were.
Right.
Some would say we're actually. Some wrestlers said we're actually too nice. So we just said, okay, you're gonna call us Heartthrob? Sure, we'll do whatever you guys want.
That's funny. It's like tag title match debut MSG. Like you said, you're a big fan. You've seen Hulk backstage. I mean, it's crazy. But then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, by the way, we're changing your names. Like,
Yeah,
all right, or whatever. Well,
yeah,
we love it. Yeah.
yeah, sure, yeah, and we just went with it the best we could.
So, like, when you're there, do they give you sort of like any? I know they tell you tag title match, but any sort of like, hey, this is what we're going to do with you in the future, or none of that.
I'll tell you from what I remember now, because it's every year, it's a little more removed. There wasn't really much of a timeline in regards to here's the plan. And quite honestly, and I've said this in past interviews, I feel like there could have been a little more cohesion between getting called up and getting called up, in regards to if they wanted us to be different than our characters in OVW, or if they were looking for certain things, or if they wanted us to work with certain teams, then could we have done vignettes to kind of get the characters over?
Right.
Because what was ironic was, and I noticed this afterwards, there was several tag teams that came immediately after us, and every single one of them got vignettes. And the two that I could think of right now were Crime Time and the Highlanders.
Yes, yes.
And I remember both of those teams came in with about 4 weeks of vignettes leading up, building up to their, debut. And it was like we were so character driven that if we were given that opportunity to build the characters, and then during those 4 weeks, maybe we could have done some dark matches, or maybe we could have talked with the writers or this, or if they wanted us to change this or be this, and that's on us, as well. When we were in OVW towards the end, when we got called up, Paul Heyman was there, and Paul Heyman loved our work in regards to our promos and our vignettes. And we would have, every single one of us in the OVW class would have a promo class with kind of Paul, where it would just be Paul and them, and he'd critique us or just say go. And everything that we went in with him, he really enjoyed it. I'm not just saying that. Like he was probably one of the reasons why we got called up so quickly, because we entertained the heck out of him every time we did a promo. So he was probably like, yeah, these guys are really entertaining. These guys are really great. The one thing Paul Heyman said was, when after we got called up, I guess he was just a big fan of Mo Green, or thought that Mo Green was a good part of our team. But he said, he's like, you guys should have got Mo Green, or you guys should have kept Mo Green, or something along those lines. And he thought that could have helped too, because it was Mo Green and the Heartbreakers, and not too many people even know what I'm talking about right now, unless they're really into their OVW history. But between those promos that we did for Paul, and then just the fanfare we had for OVW, there wasn't much of a transition to the main roster. And then, it ended up just playing out the way it did.
If that is true though about the vignettes, the Highlanders got a bunch.
Yeah.
Primetime got like great ones. I remember people were so anticipating them because of their funny videos and the guy's voice in the videos. It was really, people were interested in it.
Right. And I wonder, and I've said this in the past to other friends and wrestlers, like, I wonder if they felt like after us that, maybe we should give other teams, some vignettes as a build up, versus, just throwing these two guys out with no build up and no, and no nothing. But once again, like I said, that was on us to, try to make something, of the opportunity we were given. But hindsight's always 2020. You look back, some vignettes would have been nice, and they gave some vignettes to the Highlanders in Crime Time, and I all four of those guys, still very friendly with. R.I.P. to Shad. He was always a great guy to me. But I got along with all four of them. Glad all four of them had nice success, and they have nice memories as well. I look back, on life, wrestling and in general, it's all about memories and experiences. And I've taken quite a few memories and experiences from wrestling. And it's funny because the WWE, when I look at it, I feel like was such a small part of my memories and experiences of wrestling, and the things I did before WWE and after WWE, were just as fun and maybe even more memorable, looking back in the grand scheme of things.
Did you wish you got a longer run in WWE?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said no, right? Like I can come out here and I could be one of these wrestlers that's oh yeah, I was on to bigger and better things, and that was enough, and I had enough. But who really works hard to make it to WWE, and then gets there, and then we're there for between OVW and WWE, you can round it off to almost 2 years. Who wouldn't want a little more run than that? And just selfishly, financially, who wouldn't want a little more run than that? Because you do all that work, you work so hard, you want some paydays out of it too.
Yeah.
So sure, yeah, do I wish it was longer? Yeah, looking back, I made the best of it. I made the best of it afterwards. And I've made a name for myself in a completely different industry where I don't even tell people that I was a wrestler. Sometimes it comes out, sometimes they Google me and they find out. But I've tried to make a new name and a new career for myself where I'm not relying on being trained with former WWE professional wrestler. Like when I teach at college or when I'm doing presentations, I don't even mention that at all because I don't want to lean on that, and I don't feel the need to lean on that as a way to Kurt favor to be a former television WWE star.
When you look back at the release, were you surprised by it? And like, how did it go down?
Was I surprised? I mean, towards the end, it really wasn't. Really weren't doing much with us at all. So I guess I wasn't surprised. But in the end, like we were just hoping that eventually that they would start doing something with us. And we were always giving ideas. I mean, I remember we wrote a book. It must have been at least 20 pages of potential storylines, ideas. We gave them to all the writers. Like we were doing everything we could. Um, you know, but in the end, who knows if it was even read? Who knows
Yeah,
if it
you
was,
never know. Yep.
even given to the right people. So at that point, that's when I started wrestling in Puerto Rico, which was awesome. I mean, we had like separate heel and face locker rooms where we wouldn't even talk to or see our opponent until we got in the ring. Like I never got to experience that before WWE or even on the independents. And a lot of times, I don't speak any other language. I speak a little Italian, but I don't speak any other language other than English and a little Italian. So there was a barrier there as well, and it was a really great experience. Just literally calling something in the ring with somebody you've never seen before, who's in a separate locker room. Um, and then from there, I started wrestling in Italy, in Europe, and I wrestled all over Italy and United Kingdom and France and all these great places. So big word is pivot in our world nowadays. But I pivoted pivoted nicely, and then shortly thereafter, was when I started to get into the health and fitness industry, and it wasn't something that I was necessarily interested in the fact that this is going to be my next career, this is going to be the next stage of my life. It just kind of slowly evolved, and then I started to get busier, and then I started to learn more, and then I started to get busier, and then I started to get this opportunity, and then I started to get this opportunity, and then before I knew it, just the percentage of my time in my life started to sway from wrestling to the fitness industry, and that's where it's continued on today.
So as we wind it down, we head towards the finish. What's the favorite place you've ever wrestled? Not WWE per se, but I mean, just like, would it be Italy, or what is your favorite place that you've wrestled?
Oh yeah, Italy number one. I got to go to many places throughout the country of Italy. I have family there that's never been really. They've been to the States for like weddings and stuff, but very rarely. They got to see me wrestle in their hometown. I got to wrestle in Sicily and win the NWE heavyweight championship there against Vampiro, who's a very legendary figure in his own right. So I would 100% was being able to wrestle and tour in Italy, and being from an Italian heritage, and my dad was born in Italy. It made him very proud. And I was always looking to make my parents proud, and always looking to even though there was times in my life where I'm dancing around with a feather boa, in the end, I was just doing what I was told, so to speak, and doing it the best I could. But I just had a great time wrestling over in Italy for sure.
So you didn't mind the heartthrobs gimmick and kind of, the way it was presented. You didn't mind that at all. Good for like basically a good heat magnet.
Well, I mean, if that's if that's what they wanted us to be, then that's what we were going to try to do and try to be, right. So we just did it to the best of the best of our abilities, and if they said, do a dance, then we came up with a dance. And that's I think looking back, not even looking back, but I mean, those aren't exactly extensions of our personality. Like, they say, the best gimmicks or the best wrestlers end up being extension of a personality.
Right, right, yeah.
Right. So it's not that those were extensions of our personality. Those were straight up like different characters in us that we were playing, that we were just trying to have fun with. And at many times it was fun. Or we tried to have fun with it. And once again, do the best we could. But I'm gonna probably have some explaining to do when my daughter Googles me one day. But that's a bridge to cross when that happens.
Yeah, it's like, Daddy, what the hell are you doing here? What is this character? What are you playing here? What the
Yeah,
hell?
yeah. Just look at the pictures from Italy instead. Those are the normal pictures.
Yeah, me beating Vampiro and Heidenreich and all these other guys. Yeah.
Right, 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 right.
The thing about the heartthrobs is that is funny. It's like that's not us at all, but you could still play the character and get it over as heel. So I mean, that's kudos to you guys for not really wanting to say per se play those characters, but be able to get it over.
Well, I think I think there's a case that can be made that it probably didn't get over,
Oh
and
yeah, I
that
guess.
was that was part of the problem, and I have no problem, admitting that or saying that. I don't have any you know dignity to try to keep up or whatever. I know I was basically looking back, I was a little blip, on the WWE radar, but it was good while it lasted. And like I said, I had just as much fun and just as much great experiences. I probably wrestled just as many names on the independent circuit uh, afterwards than I ended up wrestling on shows in WWE. And then on the independent circuit, it's we don't really have to worry about TV time getting cut and this or that. I mean, you just go out there, and I wrestled Jerry the King Lawler so many times, which was amazing. Where we would just go out there and say, King, okay, pile driver is the finish. All right, we'll just call it out there. And it was amazing that that I can work with a legend like that. And I have so many other great experience. I got to work with like Booker T on the independent circuit. I got to work with everybody in Italy, like Rikishi and Heidenreich, like you said, Vampiro. So I try to remember the the good times, so to speak. And even though once again, when my daughter Googles me, she may see some feather boas. But if that's the worst you got on me, then I'm doing okay. And I feel like when I get into my 50s, 60s, and 70s, I'm going to be one of those guys that you see that's say, wow, he still looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm definitely learning more and more and teaching more and more about how to do that. And if I can help any wrestlers do that, then I'm happy to do that as well.
So what's next for you? What's on tap?
I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue teaching at university. I'm going to continue, traveling around the country doing my seminars, because it's interesting. I was traveling around the country as a wrestler, and now I'm traveling around the country as a fitness presenter, and just continue to kind of make my niche in the fitness industry. And it seems that I've evolved into working with the quote elderly population, where I'm very good with the 55 and older crew. I'm going to continue to write some research articles and papers and kind of dig deeper onto that side of things. Every once in a while, I still get an acting gig. So I was in The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. If anybody remembers that quick scene with me and Ron Killings, I was the guy with Ron Killings. Right? Everybody probably remembers Ron Killings in the movie. I was the guy with him. And I've gotten some cool acting opportunities between my time with WWE and even up to now. I just did a commercial for Barstool Sports. We did it several last year. We did several this year. I appeared on Gotham on Fox and a couple shows on Showtime. So I'll still continue kind of taking in some acting roles as well. And like I said in the beginning, I want to be present every single possible second for my daughter, because I never knew how much I loved being a father until I became one. And there's nothing more important than being a father. And I'm so happy that I'm not wrestling full time and not on the road. So I don't have to be away from being a dad and being away from these unbelievable moments, that I'm experiencing, as a father in age 1, 2, 3, 4, and now she's 5, turning 6 next year. So, that's really what I continue to look forward to every day of my life.
Awesome. Where can everybody find you, social media and otherwise?
Yeah, so just my legal name, my full name, GiovanniRoselli.com, and then at Giovanni Roselli, and just everything is basically under my full name. Very easy to find me, and I do. If anybody's interested, I do virtual training sessions as well. So if anybody is looking to train, virtually, if you're not local to where I am, then I'd be happy to discuss that as well. It's all business too. So I'm not looking, if you're like a wrestling fan and just want to like hang out on Zoom and not really want to train with me, I'm not really interested in that. But if anybody's really interested in actually, the actual fitness and exercise portion, of virtual training, then I'd be happy to discuss that.
Oh, awesome. Romeo, thank you for all the time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.